Welcome back to Mixed Media Creations with me, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill. Did you know that you can follow me on Instagram? www.instagram.com/Creative Katie. Don't forget to subscribe and select the option of being notified as soon as I upload a new video. Today we have a 4x4 Mixed Media Mini. It's entitled Dragonflies Appear. So here are the supplies that I'm going to be using to create the background on this Mixed Media Mini. I'm going to use my Dilutions paints, and I'm going to use this 4x4 canvas board. Now this one I got at the dollar store, and it already had the magnet on the back. Now I wasn't able to find that in the Amazon store, but I did put a link to the 4x4 canvas boards and sheets of magnetic peel and stick that you can put on the back and turn any canvas board into a fridge magnet. So you saw the stamp, the Dragonfly Stamp, and as I was talking about, I will put a link to that stamp and any other products that you see me use in this video in the description box below. If it's not listed, if you go to my influencer store, you will see pictures of things, and it just makes it that much easier to find. So my Dilutions paints, I'm going to be using these foam blending tools, and I've just put them on wooden spools with some Velcro or old stamps that I had when I was teaching. It's a good way of repurposing things and reusing them instead of buying everything. Now I love the vibrancy of the Dilutions paints, and I love the ease of which they blend, but I don't like that they do dry out, and they do seem to be fairly high maintenance, and it's because of that I haven't bought any more colors, even though I'm tempted by the lusciousness of those colors. But I will enjoy using mine till then. Now I'm just mixing these colors. Initially I was going to do kind of an ombre, kind of yellow, orange, and then red. And then I thought, no, you know what? I'm just going to kind of mix it up on the canvas board, being sure to get the sides of this canvas board. Now, one thing that you need to remember when you are blending these is that if it's not exactly what you like, stop and dry it and then come back. Like here, I'm realizing that, I've kind of lost too much yellow and I want to put some back, and I'm adding it, but then it's just blending with the color that's underneath. So then I'm stopping and drying, as you see me doing right here. This video is sped up somewhat. I did keep it, I think it's only just 1.5 times sped up. But this whole project took about 45 minutes to complete. So that gives you an idea of the actual work time. Of course, things like drying sometimes aren't captured on film. Now I have this Crafter's Workshop stencil. And in the spirit of use your stash, this is another stencil that I just don't use that much. So I'm not sure if I'm going to use this one, and I think it's called Switchback. I have this Dragonfly Stencil in the middle. It's a little hard to see which stencil is going to look best. So I'm just getting some, this is the kind of throwaway layer after you peel off from a napkin. And I find this is perfect for stamping and then collaging. A lot of the, it turns kind of translucent, and you can kind of see the background through it. This is a nice size dragonfly. It took me a long time to find a dragonfly that was a good size, that you could use quite easily on a larger art journal page. And whenever I stamp, I typically stamp more than the one that I need. And then I just add it to my stash, and then it makes it quick and easy to pull out and use on another day. So I'm just going to rip some of this napkin away just to get rid of the excess before I try to cut it out in the regular way. Just, there's just not enough room. So there we have it. Now I've seen, and you probably have as well, people to get a water brush and apply it, and then it just wets the tissue, the napkin, and then it allows you to just kind of rip it off. It always looks so easy when they do it. I never quite have that much success. I don't have a water brush, so I'm just adding water to my fine liner brush, letting it soak in, and then just very carefully kind of tweaking it apart. The last time I did this, I discovered that the background, any of the excess white on the outside of the dragonfly, totally melted into the background and disappeared, and you didn't see it. So I was going under the illusion that that was what was going to happen this time, and I don't know if this is just from a different napkin, and that's the cause of it. But you'll see in a bit that it doesn't go away, and you actually get that white halo around the dragonfly, and you'll see what I do to fix it. This is very finicky, and if you don't want to fuss like this, or it doesn't become translucent and you want to get closer, then by all means use a pair of scissors and kind of fussy cut. So there is the dragonfly. And this, I think it's called Switchback. And then there's this bullseye one, also from the Crafter's Workshop. And I thought that would be kind of cool to have the dragonfly in the middle. But something about the composition wasn't speaking to me. So I set the bullseye one aside, and I'm going to come back and use that for another project. What I want here is just some nice pattern and visual texture. So you can see I'm just putting some yellow on there, and I was going to put yellow and orange and red, and then I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to put the red. The red was so smooth and creamy. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put it right on. Because my goal here was just to have just that interesting texture behind the dragonfly. Now, if you wanted to do something similar to this, you can use any small scale stencil and any 3 colors. These 3 colors are next to each other on the color wheel. Look at the color wheel. If you don't own one, go online, find it online. Pick 3 colors, a light, medium, and dark. And use those. I think this would look good, very, very nice with blues and teals, but I've done a couple of those lately. So I'm just trying to position the dragonfly in here by getting my sentiment in. And again, when it comes to the quotes, there's certain themes. I use dragonflies a lot. I use butterflies. And when I search for quotes, I often have them typed up, and then I print them off. And then there I have them for quick and easy. Right now my laser printer is actually acting up. I think I need to clean the roller or replace it, or maybe even get a new printer. But so I'm glad that I have these ones already printed off. And here I'm just showing, I'm cleaning these blending tools. And I often spray them with a little bit of water and then just put the color onto a coffee filter like you see here. And that gets the paint off and you're not wasting anything. And I'm just cleaning it up that way. I wet it down, and now these will be used in upcoming projects. And to be quite honest, quite many times they are my favorite because I'm not thinking, I'm not overthinking. These blending foams, once I do this, I just throw them in water and wash them out, and you can use them again and again and again. After a while, they get kind of worn out. Then I use them for other acrylic paints. There, I'm just pulling it off and it just goes in the tub of water that's there. So I'm really liking the background here, these warm colors. And I decided I'd want to get a little more of this white off, this halo effect. And as I said before, I would be much happier just using a pair of scissors to cut. Now, if you didn't want to put it on a napkin, you could put it on tissue paper. You can put it on to cardstock or mixed media paper, watercolor paper, and then you won't see the background through it, which is the effect that I'm going through here. But you can totally collage that on afterwards. So don't think you have to do it this way. It can be much simpler than this. If it was on watercolor paper, then I would just watercolor, get a nice watercolor look on the Dragonfly. I think that would look really, really nice, actually. Now I plan on edging this 4x4 canvas, so I want to make sure that my sentiment is far enough from the edges that I don't run into trouble when I decide to do that. I'm using the archival ink and just inking around the outside of this sentiment. And that just kind of edges it a little bit and makes it stand out and makes it go well with the black of the Dragonfly stamp. This is finicky, but it's well worth the effort. If you didn't want the sentiment to be white, you can paint them with a very thin down your paint because you don't want to lose the crispness of the letters, the black. So I decide that I'm going to do some splattering, and I'm thinning the black paint down, and I just kind of give it a try to see if it's the right consistency. Then I add a little bit more. And I'm adding the black here because I have black in the dragonfly, I have black in the letters, and I just want a little bit in the background. And I'm taking the time to dry it because I'm going to come back and I'm going to splatter again with a different color. And if you let them, don't let them dry in between, then they will mix and you may not get a color or a combination that you like. So I'm just using my Liquitex Basics, actually, or is it maybe Artist Loft Gold, and I'm adding that to it. I just want that little bit of shimmer and shine to show when it catches in the light. And if you watch some of my videos, you know that I like my bling. You really can't see it, but when you tilt it in the light, it does catch, and you do see the metallic. Now I had too big of a one there, so I decide that I'm going to clean it up. I grab a baby wipe, and then for some reason it actually takes off the Dylusions paint. So now I have a problem that I have to fix. So I just grab some of the paint from the Dylusions paint, and I'm just, tapping it on there. I'm not too worried because I know that I'm going to be able to position the sentiment or the dragonfly to cover on top of that. And actually, if you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't know it was there. Just checking the bling factor. And there you can see that how that gold, the addition of that gold does. It just makes it look so nice. When you're working on a small canvas, an ATC, an iCAD, I think less is more. You can't do everything. You can't have texture paste and stenciling and stamping and, sometimes it gets lost. I mean, you can put it, but then by the time you put a focal point on, it covers everything up. When I started doing art journaling, the journal pages seemed so big and so daunting. And I started actually with ATCs because you could finish them and it was quick and it was easy. And I could use many of my stamps, although at that time I didn't have a whole lot of stamps, as the focal point. And for someone who doesn't draw, that's important. So I'm using gel medium, and I decided, okay, now that I've got everything positioned, I'm going to put the sentiment on, putting the gel medium underneath and on top, and this is matte finish, which I guess I could have used gloss here because in the end I do put a gloss varnish. It's a gloss, medium, and varnish combined from Liquitex. Now with the napkin is very fragile, and it becomes even more so as soon as you wet it. So I tend to, position it and then fold back parts of it. and then put gel medium on the top. And I'm thinning the gel medium. It's off camera here, but I just thin it with a spray of water just to be so it is a little bit more gentle on it. Now the camera's not really picking it up, but in real life, the white around, like the tissue or the napkin around on the outside of it, just really was bothering me. It didn't go as translucent as or transparent as I wanted it to. And I tried to convince myself there was kind of a halo effect, and I just didn't really like it. But when I'm looking at it now, I think I, was making too big of a deal out of it. And there, I'm trying to get a little bit of it off. I think, okay, well, let's dry it and see what it looks like when it's dry. And as I'm watching this, I think I had flipped the Dragonfly stamp. So this is, I think it was the underside of the stamp. So I'm thinking that maybe, just maybe, when I dry it, it's not going to show, or it's going to show more. And I'm thinking, okay, how can I fix this? Because a lot of time that's what you're faced with when you are in the midst of a page and something doesn't quite do what you want it to do. You have to kind of fix it. And you can see there that in some places it's a little more white. Now I could have left it as it is, but what I choose to do is I get out the Dilutions paints and a couple of the colors and water them down and just kind of do a wash over top of those parts. I don't want it to be opaque, and I don't want, because I don't want to cover up the background that I've spent time creating, and nor do I want it to look like there's this orange line around the dragonfly. And I think that works pretty good. I would just caution you, note, if you're trying this, don't have the paint too heavy. You can put several layers if you want. And there I'm just kind of rubbing it with my finger just to blend it in. And that's just getting rid of the white so I can't see it. So next time, if I wanted to use the napkin, I may just cut a little bit closer to it, or know full well that this is what I'm going to do. So now we have a technique in place to handle this kind of situation. And you can see right now you can't see any of that white or halo effect around the dragonfly. Now you can, if you don't have a dragonfly stamp, you can substitute a butterfly stamp or anything that you want as your focal point. This is just showing a quick, easy background to set off a focal point. So here I have the something violet, and I'm going to do my shading, my acrylic floating around the dragonfly. And I just add water to this and I float. And again, you can check out my technique tag videos where I teach how I do this floating technique. It's definitely one, take the time to practice it, because it's how I make my focal points pop 90% of the time. And I'm just adding that little bit of shading. And the shading, you could say I'd, just not do that. But I like adding the shading because it seems to meld the background and the focal point. Now back, you can use magazine pictures of butterflies or birds as well. It's not going to be translucent. You're not going to see the background through it, like the effect that I have here using the napkin, but it's going to be lovely. You know, those of us who don't draw or feel that they can't draw, there are other options, you know, stamps, but stamps often aren't big enough if you are working on a full-size page. So magazines, coloring books, all great sources of focal points. And as you can see here with the shading, I'm doing a little bit at a time, and then I'm building up the intensity of color. And I decide that the outside edge needs a little bit darker. Now that the focal point is shaded, I want this to kind of work together. So I'm just applying it around the edges. And just a reminder, like supplies that I can find in Amazon will be linked, so that if you want to find the exact stamp or stencil because you like it, it's in the description box below. If it's not specifically meant, you know, please go check out my Amazon influencer store. They show pictures, and that makes it really easy to shop because you can see something and know that it's the right thing. Always comparison shop and check for shipping costs and prices, because sometimes they change from when I posted it or linked it to my store. So I'm just adding a little more color. I wasn't building up enough, so I put it on a makeup sponge. And I just buy these inexpensively at Walmart or the dollar store. I like the ones that are a little more dense. Now I'm using the copper, my Liquitex Basics copper, and I'm really watering it down, and I'm just putting a very light coat of this on the dragonfly wings because I want to get that iridescence that you often see on dragonflies that makes them so beautiful. But I don't want to cover up everything else, the lines that are there. And by thinning it down, that's how I achieve that effect. And I think I put 2 coats here, but again, it's very watered down. I think I want to do a similar one and just do it in blue tones. And you can see how it picks up in the light, the iridescence. And now I'm just finishing it off, doing a sketchy line around the outside edge just to frame my canvas. And I'm not attempting to make it straight. It's very sketchy, and I'm deliberately making it sketchy because I find it looks better than if I try to make it straight and perfectly lined. So thank you so much for watching. I'm enjoying making these mixed media minis, and I hope you do too. When this dries, I'm going to put some gloss medium and varnish on it. This is what it looks like, Liquitex Basics or Liquitex Professional Gloss. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video.